Well, as the struggle continues to find ways to fix the broken budget of state government, a group of oil men came up with an offer this week that got immediate action from lawmakers. The offer also set off a flurry of counteroffers and hurried meetings to reach a deal. In the end, the state Senate approved a bill that wipes out a tax cut for the oil and gas industry that will become a hammer aimed at others to give up their tax breaks too.
Mike Cantrell, Dewey Bartlett, and David House, three longtime Oklahoma oil men, three former chairmen of the board of the Oklahoma Independent Petroleum Association, and three men who think it's time for the oil and gas industry to give up some tax breaks.
I think that we have the responsibility, have the ability to take a look at not only our tax benefits, but all of the tax benefits. We've seen well over 150 exemptions in sales taxes alone that seem to be not being discussed at this point.
Mike Cantrell suggested eliminating the at-risk oil well tax rebate, which usually costs the state a couple $1 million a year. It's designed to keep old marginal wells pumping by giving back much of the gross production taxes they pay. But it has become a tax break that big oil companies are now taking advantage of.
They've got it scored at $132 million now. And the reason is that the big companies now take almost 90% of those refunds.
And that's something no one expected years ago when the tax credit was created. David House is president of Gyra Resources, LLC. He says all of the energy industry's tax breaks should be looked at, and there was even some support for that.
One senator told me earlier this week that in a perfect world, which we don't have, he would love to do away with all the credits across the board, all 322 of them. But he understands the reality that that's probably not going to be possible.
But in fact, doing away with any tax break is not an easy thing, as Cantrell, Bartlett, and House discovered. Shortly after Cantrell suggested giving up the at-risk tax credit, the political wheeling and dealing began.
Leadership threatened us that they'll run 1577 and get rid of the at-risk provisions completely unless we go along with their long lateral bill. And I don't like to do something I don't think's right with a gun held to my head.
The lateral bill would have allowed horizontal drillers to snake their operations right into oil pools that have vertical wells drilled into them, something that has been a major controversy between big and small oil companies for years. Tulsa Mayor Dewey Bartlett, also the owner of an oil company, says political deals were not what he had in mind.
All of us have been in the business in Oklahoma for a very long time, and in many cases several generations of our families have been involved with this industry, and we viscerally have a feel for the betterment of Oklahoma.
Cantrell says giving up the at-risk tax credit really impacts the state's smallest operators.
I'm hoping that if we're willing to do this, others will too. Or our legislators will, have a little steel. It'll give them a little steel in the spine to go on and do what's right. And what the right thing to do would be to eliminate those that don't make sense.
Mike Terry is president of the Oklahoma Independent Petroleum Association. He says they took Cantrell's idea and modified it a bit.
We've been talking to leadership out here, and they've offered us a deal where it would cap that gross production tax at-risk provisions. We would take a cut down to $25 million per year, even for 2015, even though the legislation said 16.
So that was the second political deal on the bill, one that the OIPA board voted to approve.
Cutting it to zero is not a fair deal. There's other provisions out here from other energy providers that are getting a lot more from the state than that.
But Senate President Pro Tem Brian Bingman had other plans. He authored Senate Bill 1577 to eliminate the at-risk tax credit to create leverage for others to give up some tax breaks too.
We passed this bill, $132 million comes back for us to appropriate and fund education. I'm going directly to the wind industry and say, all right, where's your $100 million? Why don't you help us get through this crisis?
And that's what Cantrell, Bartlett, and House had hoped for in the first place, that by stepping out first, just maybe, others with big tax breaks would follow their lead.
We think we ought to do our part, but everybody else ought to do it too.
We are really looking for others to follow along with us, whether it comes to the legislature or through other organizations. But we have a huge shortfall in revenues that we're trying to fill, and we can't fill it as one industry.
But eliminating the tax break altogether is not what OIPA President Mike Terry had wanted.
Not at all.
Well, what's that do then?
I think that's a raw deal.
SB 1577 now goes to the House, where there will be another opportunity to make changes to the bill.